Hey YouTube, I found this obituary in the Boston Globe, Saturday, January 15th edition. I was going through some recycling. I don't usually read the obits, but this actually fell out of one of the newspapers, and I thought I wanted to bring it to people's attention. It's an obituary for Dick Winters. He is the soldier that was featured in Band of Brothers. He inspired that. There's a picture of him here in 1945 in his uniform. So Dick Winters was the Easy Company commander whose World War II exploits, I'm just going to paraphrase the newspaper article here, were made famous by the book and television miniseries Band of Brothers. He died in central Pennsylvania. He was 92. He died the week of January 7th. He had a several-year battle with Parkinson's disease, according to a longtime friend. He was a very interesting person. If you watch the miniseries, I'm sure most of you have. If you read the Ambrose book, you'd know that this is a very intensely private and perhaps more importantly, humble human being. Humble people are really becoming more and more rare, aren't they? The family asked that the news of his death be withheld till after the funeral for privacy reasons. The men that Mr. Winters led expressed their admiration for their company. There's not a lot of World War II vets alive anymore. Two of these folks, William Guarneri, he's now 88, said he remembers him as a great leader. And he quoting Guarneri said, referring to Mr. Winters, when he said, "Let's go," he was right in the front. So he was never in the back, and he was a leader personified. That's a leader. Another member of that unit, which was E Company, the 506th Regiment of the 101st Airborne Division. Mr. Heffron, whose nickname in Band of Brothers was Babe, said about Mr. Winters, he was a hell of a guy, one of the greatest soldiers I was ever under. He was a wonderful officer, a wonderful leader. He had what you needed, guts and brains. He took care of his men. That's very important. Mr. Winters was intelligent, honest, and a human being with a high degree of integrity. He studied economics at Franklin and Marshall College before enlisting, according to a biography on the Penn State website. On D-Day, after the death of his company commander during the invasion of Normandy, Winters became the leader of E Company, the 506th Regiment, 101st Airborne Division. During the invasion, Winters led 13 of his men in destroying an enemy battery and obtaining a detailed map of the German defenses along Utah Beach. In 1944, September, he led 20 men in a successful attack on a German force of 200 soldiers occupying the Bastogne area of Belgium at the time of the Battle of the Bulge. He and his men held their place until the Third Army broke through the enemy lines, and Mr. Winters was promoted shortly after to Major. The Third Army, of course, being led by General Patton. After returning home, Mr. Winters married his wife, Ethel, in May 1948 and trained infantry and Army Ranger units at Fort Dix during the Korean War. He started a company selling livestock feed to farmers, and he and his family eventually settled in Hershey, Pennsylvania, where he retired. The famous historian Steve Ambrose was interviewed Mr. Winters for the book Band of Brothers, which was published in 1992. And that's the book that the HBO miniseries was based on. Let's see. I'm just trying to extract the most important things here. He was definitely a soldier of note, and he was being asked a lot about leadership. And he talked about his view of leadership for an August 2004 article in American History magazine. And this is what he said. If you can, find that peace within yourself, that peace and quiet and confidence that you can pass on to others so that they know that you are honest and you are fair and you will help them no matter what when the chips are down. When people asked if he was a hero, he echoed the words of one of his buddies in the war, Mike Rainey, and simply said, "No, but I served in the company of heroes." Guarneri sums it up rather well. He was a good man, a very good man. I would follow him to hell and back. So would the men from E Company. I think most people would. Dick Winters, dead at the age of 92. I think everybody that's interested in World War II history would be interested in this. And there's not a lot of World War II vets still alive, very few. We're losing them at a really fast rate because they're getting pretty old. But keep in mind what these folks have done, and keep in mind that how they behave. The guys that have been there and back, how they behave, how they hold themselves, and pay attention to the level of integrity that they have. I think you'll find it pretty amazing. Thanks.